Yes, we're live here at Embedded Systems Conference. Our session today, we're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to be talking about using Twitter in the embedded market space. And the panel up here is some of the most tweeted people out there in the embedded space, I guess you'd say. They're very active, very knowledgeable in what's going on, and have quite a few followers. So this is going to be the only session that you guys are allowed to be on your cell phone the entire session, and we will not get mad. I promise you that. So feel free to tweet away, and we're going to check to make sure you're on your cell phone and not texting friends or something like that. So please, the one thing we do ask is if you do tweet in about this session, good or bad, that you put underscore ESC or hashtag ESC underscore events with your tweet. And I'm going to point to it right here. We're going to have a live feed right from the show. So if you guys are talking, talk about it, and we'll update it, and we'll see exactly what you guys are talking about right from the show floor. And if you guys want to tweet too, you can do that. All right, I'm going to introduce everybody. Starting off, Jim, could you just introduce yourself and who you are, and go right on down the line.
I'm Jim St. Ledger. Can everybody hear me? Check, check. We should be really loud and get everybody around us to turn and look. Right?
Yes.
What should we yell?
Yeah.
Tweet.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, tweet. One. Are all the microphones on? Okay, 1, 2, 3. Tweet!
I like it.
All right.
So many words. Yeah. All right.
Hey,
Get a little more attention.
somebody's awake over
Come
there.
join us. Learn something new today. This will be fun. Yes, you. Come sit down. I'm Jim St. Ledger. I'm from Intel's Embedded Group. I work in Phoenix, Arizona. It was 93 degrees there yesterday. It's 56 here today and raining. Good thing I text to see what the weather is, because I would have showed up like this and been cold and wet. But I tweet as Intel Jim. Find me online. I do look like that once upon a time in my life. So.
Hi, I'm Lori Kate Smith. How am I supposed to follow that? I'm from ARM, and I tweet under two handles, ARM Community and Lori Kate, and we can talk about that later. I look after ARM's partner program, so I know a lot of you are partners, so welcome, thank you, and our website and our digital media activities.
Hi everybody, I'm Karen Bartleson from Synopsys. My Twitter name is Karen Bartleson, so that I can remember who I am. I'm responsible for a lot of corporate initiatives at Synopsys, including our social media strategy. And I also tweet a lot as the corporate Synopsys account. And I hope you enjoy today, because Twitter is really fun once you get to know what it's all about.
Hi guys, I'm Jennifer Howard Brown. I'm with National Instruments, and I'm in our embedded marketing group. My Twitter handle is JenHB, Jen with 2 N's. And under that, you'll find me tweeting about anything from NI's embedded platform to robotics to running and wine. So a little bit of everything there.
And my name is Tonya Reese, and I love Twitter so much that I started a conference about it called TwitterCon. And I tweet under Tonya_Reese. That was a mistake. We can talk about that. And also under TwitterCon. And I'm excited to be here.
Excellent. Well, just one thing. Before today, I had never met anybody here on this panel. And just simply over the last couple months using Twitter, we got to know each other. We started plotting this, and it's probably been, 3 months of working together. So this is going to be a real informal roundtable. If you guys have questions, you can either tweet them to us up there, and we'll try to monitor those. You can raise your hand. We're going to be happy to stop, and you guys can interject if you have questions along the way. So anyways, it's great to meet you guys, and we're going to get going. The focus today is how engineers can use Twitter in the embedded space. So this is important if you're an engineer, if you're a vendor, or an exhibitor here, which we hope you are as well. There's different ways that we can work together to get your message out to the engineers that are actually going to be here. So without further ado, Mr. Jim, can you kick us off with a real quick 5,000
Snapshot of what is Twitter.
And what's Twitter? You got that.
So how many people in the audience here have Twitter accounts and tweet regularly? Raise your hand.
Woohoo!
Wow.
How many people have an account but don't use it or tweet? How many people don't have an account at all and are willing to admit it? All right, so that's good. Okay, so this is mostly for you, but the rest of you chime in as well. I'm going to give you Jim's kind of quick spiel on what is Twitter, because a lot of people who don't know what it is, first are like, well, it's one of those social media, Facebook-like things, right? And it sort of is. For me, Twitter is a combination of a couple things. So it's sort of like email in that you can send messages out to people. It's sort of like Facebook in that people follow you and watch what you're sending. And it's sort of like texting on your phone in that it's limited to 140 characters. So if you take the best of all those and put them all together, and you throw away the badness like your inbox just keeps filling up and you can't keep up with it, with Twitter, it doesn't matter. You know, you look at stuff you can look at when you get to it, and that's great. But if it rolls off, you wait for the next stuff. And so Twitter allows you to send focused, targeted messages and information out to people who are either following you directly or looking at hashtags such as #ESC_events for what's going on at this conference. I personally spend a lot of time in the embedded space following multi-core, embedded, virtualization, and communication and networking stuff, so I track a bunch of hashtags in that area. The other thing that really helps are all the other tools that are around Twitter. So you can go to twitter.com. I wonder where twitter.org sends you, actually. Interesting. Somebody check that. And you can go and follow the stream there and follow people to find, but once you understand other tools like TweetDeck or Hootsuite or some other ones, it really increases your ability to track information and follow it and see what's going on. So I'd encourage you, if you haven't tried it out, check it out today. If you are using it, explore some of these other tools to use it as a medium to reach your audience, engage them from a customer service perspective, from an outbound marketing perspective, from a networking perspective, and from a just business development perspective as well. For me, it's a great vehicle for all of those. Now, if you guys have any comments to add?
I have one quick comment. The reason why we use 140 characters on Twitter Twitter was designed with the mobile phone in mind.
Right.
So 140 characters is the number of characters you can use in one text message. So again, with cell phones in mind, that's where they came up with that.
Yeah, and what's really powerful about that, Stuart, hold up a phone. So this is Intel_Stuart, who's using, I think, my phone
Stuart.
still, or somebody else's phone, because he doesn't have his own here. What's really made Twitter explosive, if you look at like the revolutions in Iran, right? These people aren't running around with laptops doing Twitter, they're running around with their phones. So the portability of this as a device is just scaling even further. And of course, you probably all know the story of internets or networks today and how mobile data is exploding much more than mobile voice. And it's applications like Twitter that are doing that. But the presence of mobile phones everywhere let everything from developing nations to the most developed world on 3G networks moving to 4G engage the medium just as well.
Should I give a demonstration?
Say it again.
I'll give you a demonstration.
There you go.
I took a picture of the Twitter streams that are over there on IBM, and I'll post those on my Twitter account with a link to the photos. And so in a few minutes, when this is refreshed, you'll be able to see my face and a link over to the picture of what's going on right across the way.
I'll time it for you.
Yeah, well, time how fast he can refresh it.
Yeah.
But now there are people out there who can't attend ESC who are actually watching this, and they're getting bits of information from the conference. They're getting photos. They're getting all kinds of stuff that they wouldn't have otherwise gotten to see unless they came to the conference.
All right, are we ready to move on, guys?
We are.
Okay, Tonya, I'm going to let you kick off this slide.
Cool.
So do you want to come up here? You might see it a little better. Or can you?
Yeah, no, I can do it from here. So we've all heard the buzz about Twitter and the explosive growth, and it really has been explosive over the last 3-4 years. They are now at 105 million registered users. We actually had to update the slide today because Twitter had their developer conference about a couple weeks ago now, and they announced some new numbers. They announced they had grown to 105 million users. They're signing on 300,000 new users every day, right? So a lot of people are using the service, and we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about what they're using it for and what engineers can use it for. They are sending 10 billion tweets a day.
Sometimes I think Karen alone sends 10 billion a day.
I'm sorry, 50 million a day, 10 billion total, right? So they crossed the 10 billion threshold. I probably should have stood up there. And somebody mentioned the portability, right? Mobile access to Twitter has grown at a phenomenal rate, 347%. And one of the statistics that Twitter announced is that 37% of their users are using their phone to send tweets. So definitely something that people are taking with them everywhere. And in emerging markets, really one of the most used ways that people are accessing Twitter. 79%, this to me is the money statistic if you're in marketing or in business at all. 79% of Twitter followers are more likely to recommend brands since becoming a follower of that brand. All right, so what does that mean? One of the things that people in the social media world talk about a lot is trust and influence. If you think about where you personally get your information from and what information you're likely to trust the most, right? There's information that you get from all kinds of places, magazines, television, vendors, trade shows, right? But at the end of the day, if you talk to someone who is your friend or who is another engineer that you know and trust, which are the opinions that you're going to trust the most, right? And that's what's so powerful. One of the very powerful things about social media is that it connects you to other people that are peers that you trust their influence and their information. And you couple that with the willingness that people have to share opinions about brands, products, things they're trying out, even if it's as simple as, hey, saw this movie, hated it, okay? We had an example, I think it was, what was the movie that got killed? It was the new comedy movie by the guy who, Bruno.
Oh, Bruno.
Everybody hear Bruno, right? A movie that didn't make it
Sacha
past its
Baron
first
Cohen.
weekend. And it was so hyped. There was so much marketing around it. And the first opening night, Bruno was a trending topic on Twitter, not for a good reason. People hated it. And the movie was dead on arrival. And so the half-life of a consumer product like that gets talked about on Twitter, you know, it can either go through the roof or it can go in the toilet very, very quickly. So it's changing marketing cycles, it's changing product development cycles, and as more people begin to use it for business reasons, you know, you're going to potentially start to see the same thing happen where information just gets spread very, very quickly. 67% are more likely to buy the brands that they follow. So what does that mean? If you work at a company and your company is talking about its products and your fans are following you, that's a relationship that you're building with those customers over time that is going to influence their decisions to buy or engage in conversation with your company. So it can be a very, very powerful marketing tool amongst other things.
We have a question.
Yes. The question was, how does Twitter make their money, and is it through advertising? The answer is that they have the Twitter business model has been a big sort of secret for a long time. A lot of people have been speculating and asking that question. They're incredibly well funded, so they actually don't have to worry about making money for a little while. But they did just announce a strategy that involves what they call promoted tweets, where based on, and I don't completely understand it yet myself. I haven't played with it. They're just beginning to roll this out. But the idea would be that brands are able to send tweets that then get put in a stream that are more likely to be displayed in certain contexts based on, however, whether they are popular tweets that get retweeted and that add value to the conversation. And that sounds a little convoluted, and you know they're in the process of kind of explaining that to marketers themselves and rolling it out. So advertising is going to be one strategy, but they're talking about, and you guys may have heard some more details beyond what I just shared. We could talk about it if you guys are interested. The other thing that they have hinted at and talked about is kind of commercial accounts, where they would provide additional tools to brands who are using Twitter in a commercial context that would allow you to, you know, better manage your Twitter stream, do analytics and things like that. So those are the two areas that they're looking at. But right now, the one revenue stream they've had is that they've made some of the real-time content or the tweets available through Google and Bing search. And so they've signed agreements with those two companies that have given them some revenue, but not substantial yet.
Hey, Adam, could you do me a favor and click on the link that Karen just did down here? I'm not sure if you guys can see it, but this was Karen Bartleson had posted a tweet of the tweet deck that was at the...
It's right over here. And I'm not a photographer, so don't criticize me, but it's a very bad photo. But.
So anyways, this was a... thanks, Anna. This was the tweet deck that they were running over there. And obviously, I can't see these, but they're different keywords or ESC events and things like that. So very cool. Some of the others, so there's actually quite a few tweets that are coming from you guys sitting here in the audience, so keep them coming. All right, one of the things, and I'm going to take this slide, you guys can add to it, but if Twitter is a great listening tool, and the one way to find out who's talking about what is through search.twitter.com. And one of the great things that Embedded Systems Conference has here is what we call a hashtag, which is the number sign and then a certain key term, which is the number sign ESC_events. So if you want to find out what's going on at the show with all of the exhibitors here and who's talking about what, simply go to search.twitter.com and type that in. You guys are also eligible, as once you have your own Twitter account, to create your own hashtag. It could be hashtag Quadros. It could be hashtag Intel, which I know there is one already. What are some other hashtags that you guys use in your day-to-day?
What are you going to do with the richest 50?
So one that I use quite a bit is Pound Robotics as a hashtag. So in my area at NI, robotics is a key part. I use it to kind of listen and see what other people are posting. I find applications where people are using our tools for robotics applications, or we use it as a way to kind of showcase some of our customers or some of the universities using robotics. That's one.
So lest you think we only talk about business on Twitter, my boss turned 50 last month, and so for his birthday, I gave him a hashtag, and it was called Riches50. He had a blast. There were people from all over the world that he'd never heard of before saying, "Hey, Riches50, happy birthday, dude," and sending pictures. And so if you want a cheap thrill for a birthday present, send someone a hashtag for their birthday.
That's a good gift.
It was great.
And some of the ones that we use is Pound ARM, because it's a company name, and then also Pound Embedded. So we have a couple different Twitter handles, and they follow different areas. As Jennifer said about a particular area that you're doing, it's very useful to actually find out what's being talked about in your industry.
Good.
I wanted to see, they don't have the TweetDeck shot up anymore, but in the tool TweetDeck, you can create these search columns to follow individuals, groups, hashtags, etc. And for me as a marketing guy, I'm really interested in three areas. So the one are the product technology areas that I'm active in. So I mentioned earlier, embedded, multi-core virtualization, telecom, datacom, wireless, networking. So I actually do set all those up, believe it or not. And I watch for discussions in those areas to see what are trending topics, what are hot activities. The second one are our customers. So in the networking space, some of our key customers are people like Ericsson, Alcatel-Lucent, Cisco, Huawei. So I have hashtag searches on all those guys to see what's going on with them. And then the last one, of course, are competitors, right? Not that you don't follow us, but in my space, it's frankly in the comm space that I deal with directly. It's people like Cavium, Freescale, and others, right? So, like they watch us, I watch them to see, well, not necessarily what are they doing, but what are people saying about them? In the same way that I do watch myself to say, what are people saying about Intel? And like was mentioned earlier from Tonya, Twitter is a very good real-time tool to quickly be on the front edge of finding trending topics. So if something's happening, good or bad, you can be right on top of it. Clearly, the iPad announcement was something that hyped up, and the day it hit, it was like just a complete storm on Twitter about the iPad. But if you added sub-searches on it, you could find things related to apps on the iPad, problems with it, etc., and complementary things. So it was very interesting to watch discussions in that area by using hashtags and watching them.
And to add what Jim said, I do also have to set up these tweets and the hashtags. What it actually does is speeds up my day in marketing because you find out what is being talked about. And what you find is after you've done TweetDeck for a while, and it's not the only tool to use, you'd be amazed how quickly you can scan 140 characters and see whether or not it's a story worth talking about or not. And so I use it a lot when you'll follow what's going on at ESC events. And I also, for example, the Mobile World Conference is a big show for us. I was actually the person who was tweeting the most for my company about Mobile World Conference because I was following the hashtag Mobile World Conference and finding out what information was going on. So even though I wasn't at the show, I was able to get the information. And secondly, at a show that Karen and I both attended, I would be at events like this one, tweeting about what was going on and reading about other sessions I couldn't attend. And so I literally had the ability to actually find out what was happening in your room and in another room to get information to me.
I had a question that somebody just tweeted in, and the question was, wouldn't Twitter be best classified mainly as a self-directed opt-in marketing network? Any comments on that?
I think clearly it's opt-in because you're either going to choose intentionally to follow someone, and I think we all have our favorite followers, people we're watching, or you're going to choose to follow a topic through a hashtag. So clearly I think it is opt-in. It's
like the marketing network
default.
to me has, and I'm in marketing, so, but not all my tweets are regarding marketing.
Right.
Right.
I'd say more of an opt-in information transfer.
Yeah, versus just marketing, because I'm a kind of a big technology guy, and I probably look for more technology-related things than I do, don't tell my boss, marketing-related things, right?
Here's another way to look at it, right? It's a tool that lets you connect with other people who have similar interests. Okay, that's the way I think of Twitter. Staying with the topic of talking about or being talked at or talking about vendors just for a moment, right? Which is how people tend to think of marketing, as vendors talking to me. Imagine let's say you have a product, and it wouldn't be any of the products that are on stage here, that you were having a problem with, right? You would be able to instantly, Toyota recalls, right? You would be able to instantly connect with other people who are in the same situation with that product, find out what they're doing, and if the company is on the ball, they would be able to give you information in real time about that recall. There are examples of, there's one example I read about of a phone company, and I don't remember which one, in the LA area that was having service outages as a result of a storm or something. And so they weren't able to communicate with their customers via phone, obviously, but you know what? They got the information about their service up on Twitter, and people were able to use their wireless phones, the problem was with the landlines, their wireless phones to find out what was going on with their landline phone service because they were able to get on Twitter and see what the issue was. Or, the ability to connect with other people who have, whether it's similar personal interests or similar business challenges, and get information from them, right? So when you do something like use a hashtag, for those of you who aren't really familiar with it, what it does is it turns that phrase into a link that you can click on and then see all the other people who've used the same hashtag. And do you want to talk to Intel, or do you want to talk to another guy who used a hashtag that maybe is not Intel, or do you want to talk to both of them and kind of find out what they think? And Twitter puts all of that at your fingertips. Right.
So as we kind of move on to our next slide here, one thing I want to, if you guys have not used them before, download or sign up for Hootsuite, HOOTSUITE, right? And TweetDeck. Those are two that will, I very rarely ever log into Twitter. And I use these services to manage several different accounts that I have and track keywords. So the question now is, well, why give a tweet? And so I know, ladies, you guys are anxious to talk about this one, so I'm going to let you guys kick it off as different ways that you use Twitter in your business.
So I know Tonya was talking about shared interests. I mean, that's a big reason to connect on Twitter. It's a good outlet to be heard. It's a good outlet to listen. One of the main reasons that we are on Twitter is so that we can listen to people using our products, and if they are having problems, like you mentioned, sometimes people have a hard time figuring things out when they're programming an embedded system. We listen and we connect them with an applications engineer, or maybe it's with someone in R&D, or we hook them up with online resources. So when it's when it's something that should be actionable, we take action and try and help them out. So it's a way that we're providing a service to our customers or our prospects, I guess is one way.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll tell a story. I met an engineer on Twitter because he posted, Synopsys products suck. And I don't encourage everybody to say that, but I thought, who is this guy? So I started following him, and we got to know each other. Turns out both he and I are very interested in IEEE standards. And I actually had him join one of the governing committees, so we worked together forevermore. And I think that gave him a good taste about how Synopsys has real people who are listening and try and help him with his problems. And speaking of standards, I get direct messages sometimes behind the scenes with secrets about what's going on in the committees. Standards are very political, and so customers will say privately, so Twitter can be private, hey Karen, let me tell you what's really happening, but don't tell them that I told you. So it can be a really powerful way of connecting directly with other engineers who have common interests, just like Jen said.
Another thing I'll talk about is customers come to us often. We're fortunate that we have a very large partner network, and people are trying to find out which ARM partner should I use. And so while there's a website that you can look at that up, they'll often send very specific, tailored questions saying, I'm looking for a partner who does this, this, and this, and this, this, and this. What I do, similar to what Jen mentioned, is I send it around internally to find out who's the key domain expert at ARM who would know that answer, to then recommend some of the ARM partners that we have. Then we respond to that customer with a couple options and links to where they can go. And so partners are continuing to come to us to get more information because it's one more avenue. One thing we haven't mentioned is that I need no more emails in my inbox. And so that's why Twitter has been a great resource for me, because I will look at Twitter and get these information really quick. And if you miss it, as Jim said, it doesn't matter. You can look at it later, or you just keep moving on to the next important topic.
Do I have to go next?
You don't have to.
You don't have to.
So Jen, can you hold up your stickers?
Oh, yeah.
So this, I actually want to segue. I love these. These are from anengineeringmind.com, I think. So go there if you haven't been.
Yeah.
And what does it say? It says, I didn't spend 4 years in computer school to talk to people. So if any of you know some of the smartest engineers and developers, they don't tend to usually be really extroverted people. And I know because my brother-in-law is a computer scientist, master's, and he doesn't talk to people. But they do like to be recognized and heard. So it's a bit of a dichotomy. They are embracing Twitter as a tool to be able to speak to people from their keyboards or their mobile phones. So they're out there having these conversations with other engineering, scientific-minded people. And you guys, if you're in marketing or in the same discipline, development engineers are targeting those folks, have an opportunity to reach them as well. It's a great medium to get your voice and your message out there, again, very crisply, which also helps because you have to be short. You can't be verbose. And if you ever get an email from me, I type much faster than I talk, so you can imagine how lengthy it is. You'll never read the whole thing. But on Twitter, I'm forced to do this. So you guys would much rather see me on Twitter than on email. It's just a great medium to actually be heard and get your message out there and try to reach people and start the conversations.
Well, and also I'd like to comment on getting famous and getting recognized, that you can really use Twitter to label yourself as an expert or your company in whatever field you're in. So whether Jim's talking about multi-core and virtualization, and he's commenting about articles and different things like that, after he does it over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, pretty soon we start thinking of Intel Jim as an expert on those topics.
Or else they stop following me because they're tired of seeing me talking about it.
Yeah, another thing that's interesting in social media, people are starting to write blogs. And it's important to get people to read your blogs, otherwise it's not worth writing them. So I wrote a blog starting a couple years ago about standards and the process. The way that I get people to read it is to post a tweet. I say, hey, I just wrote something new on my blog, and I put the link there. I use a tool called Bitly, which will track how many people have clicked on that link and where in the world they are over time. So when you send out a tweet and say, read my blog, and instantly 5 people from all over the world have read it, you think, oh my gosh, I must be famous. Maybe I better write something that's of interest to people.
Yeah. I had an example I wanted to share too. So, engineering companies, right? There are lots of smart entrepreneurial people working there, and we have a couple of applications engineers that are hobbyists and on the side, creating all kinds of great things. And this one group in particular calls themselves Waterloo Labs. And just for fun, they bought an old clunker car and figured out how to basically how to remotely control this car through their iPhone using LabVIEW, our software product. And they did this all, on their weekends, having fun, took some video of it, posted it on YouTube, tweeted about it, and it got a lot of buzz, started getting retweeted, and it got picked up by cars.com, and then it got all the way up to where it got covered by CNN.com. And so, 3 engineers in our applications engineering department, a year or 2 out of school, all of a sudden found themselves on the homepage of CNN.com with their application. So it kind of shows you the power of how you can go from zero to hero.
And you should go watch that video because it's absolutely hilarious. They're driving a car with their iPhone, one sitting on the roof, and I think they took all the doors off of it too, right?
Yeah,
it's really
it has no
hilarious.
doors, it's a clunker.
All right. Now, this is when it gets exciting for you engineers out there, geeking out. And we got some good examples. Unfortunately, I don't know if we're going to be able to run them. So we have the popcorn maker, we have the etcher, and I forget which one is which. So let's start with the popcorn maker. Who is the...
All right, sorry, that's me.
That's you, all right,
You guys
Jen.
have more of me. So this one's kind of fun too. It's some guys in LabVIEW, some engineers that they are actually an alliance partner of NI, and they like popcorn a lot, and they wanted to enter a contest it was like a crazy contest for, what's the coolest way to make your popcorn. And so they decided to engineer their popcorn machine to be LabVIEW enabled, so that when someone tweeted hashtag popcorn, pound popcorn, that it would create popcorn for them. And they set in the VI that they created in LabVIEW, they had parameters around it. So the certain number of tweets within a certain period of time would then designate how many kernels of popcorn went into the machine. So depending on how pound popcorn was trending, they would get a small bowl of popcorn or a really big bowl of popcorn. So it's just kind of a fun way that engineers are playing around with Twitter.
And the second example, which is at the NXP booth, you can go watch it, is pure genius of an engineer. They wanted to figure out, Embed is a fast prototyping platform that actually you can have an MCU talking to the internet, right? So how do you demonstrate that in something interesting? Well, our engineers decided to get an Etch-a-Sketch. And you can tweet at the tweet at Embed Micro and use the logo language, which, for example, forward is FD, forward FD50, and you can go watch the Etch-a-Sketch move and make a picture. Again, it's just a fun, different example about how do you show your product. And actually, to give Jim credit, he was actually the first one who tweeted about it. I sent him out a webpage.
I stole it from her, sorry.
But think about it. How much more valuable was it that Jim actually tweeted about a demo that wasn't based on his product but on ours and said, this is cool? I can tell you just today how many people have retweeted that because it's a cool demo.
Could you also comment on the Billy Bass?
Oh, yeah.
That was another good one.
I didn't want to dominate. No, again, same engineer. I had nothing to do with these ideas. At ESC Boston, they came out with the embed and they said, well, how are we going to get some attention? So if you guys are familiar with Billy Bass fish, usually his motion sensor and he walks by and makes an annoying noise. Well, what they did is instead is that you send a tweet to Billy Bass and he would yell out your tweet when you walked by. So you could sit there and make Billy Bass go. So if you go to mbed.org, you can actually see videos of this, or I invite you to go look at it. But again, how do you actually stand out at a show or an event to say, hey, this is cool? Synopsys did something similar at a design automation conference where they had one of the original tweet towers. And again, everyone had to go by and see the tweet towers. So you could see people standing there taking a picture and then waiting to see their picture come up on the screen.
Could you comment on the Twitter tower? This is one of my favorites.
If you switch to the next slide, there's a picture of it.
All right.
So we did this at last year's Design Automation Conference. We were the first company to actually bring Twitter to this show. It was like a 16-foot tower. It had 4 plasmas. And at the beginning of the conference, actually weeks before the conference, I had to build a community. I had to tell everybody on Twitter who was interested, here's what tag you use. I had to follow up with them. And by the time the show was over, we had more than 120 people posting tweets about all the sessions and the demos. There were people playing games, come to our booth and win an iTouch. It was really exciting. We ended up with, at the end of the week, 25,000 tweets just about our show. And that it has a real long tail, so people are still using that, talking about last year's conference and getting ready for this year's conference. Because Twitter...
2,500, not 1,000.
Oh, I'm sorry, 2,500. Yeah. This year it'll be 25,000.
Well, what's interesting though is, so that's the number
Thank
of
you.
tweets you had, right?
That was the number of tweets.
Then you have to think about, so has anybody in this audience ever bought press media? Have you ever paid for a print ad in some publication?
Watch it.
A couple people, right? So everybody, yeah, sorry. But everybody talks about impressions, which are how many ads did you place and what's the circulation, right? Well, in Twitter, your impressions are the number of tweets times the reach of that network. So when she says 2,500 people, if those 2,500 people even have 10 people following them, that's 25,000. If they have 100 people following them, that's 250,000. So you get the math, it scales very, very quickly. And then people retweet it, and it retweets through their entire network. It's not unusual. I would bet that those 2,500 tweets have reached probably what? Do you have the number? Sorry.
I have the number.
I'm stealing her thunder.
No, you're not.
All right, go ahead.
You're
You give
just
them the number.
validating it. No.
It's huge. What is the number?
189,000 impressions we made. Yeah, with just those, and reached 13,800 people just in 1 week.
Right.
Theoretically, now you got to take it with a grain of salt because 13,000 people are not watching constantly for Twitter. But it is you can actually measure where you can't necessarily measure the reach of a print ad or something. So it's very powerful.
And again, to follow up just on this example, one of the other things I liked was that 2 editors, or bloggers, actually followed the tweets at the show, never attended the show, and wrote write-ups of what happened at the show and what was important.
And you never would have known that they weren't at the show. Rich quality write-ups about what the conference was all about.
This morning I saw the Twitter Scavenger Hunt from EE Times Group here, and I happened to be over on the other side, and all of a sudden I saw about 100 people run right by me. And so I was totally blown away. So it's just some interesting things, especially around a trade show, that if you're an exhibitor, to drive people to your booth, a booth contest, a booth giveaway, even announcing products, different things like that. So certainly the trade show is a great spot.
Some of our intel, some of the other corporate groups at the large trade shows like CES, they'll do Twitter-only promotions, and they do it on a bunch of different fronts. The one is like CES will do, hey, come to the Intel booth right now to win a blank. And it could be a t-shirt giveaway, a processor giveaway, a notebook giveaway, whatever. And then for trade shows and conferences to sort of experiment in reaching audiences, they'll create a specific landing page and say, hey, tweet this out, and for those people, they get 20% off at Intel Developer Forum registration or something like that. And it's actually proven to be extremely effective in driving an audience to those events, and they use the same type of philosophy for webinars and other things like that as well. So it's been a very, very effective tool for us from a marketing perspective.
One thing I'd like you guys to talk about is at different times I've heard, oh, my legal department will never let us tweet. And I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but if we can get Synopsys, NI, ARM, and Intel on Twitter, can you guys just give us a real quick overview if you have something in writing or something you want to just comment on that area?
Karen's ready to go.
Yeah. So this is the social media policy at Synopsys. The only reason it's not public is because we just haven't gotten around to doing it yet. But because of blogging, using Wikipedia, Facebook, LinkedIn, all the media that's available to everyone, we created this policy. It looks a lot like Intel's and it looks a lot like IBM's. And basically it says, be nice, don't be stupid, don't give away intellectual property, be respectful, be knowledgeable, provide good content. But this is our guideline that pertains also to Twitter. So we're not going to send trash Twitter, we hate our competitors, or anything that is offensive. We're going to provide valuable content. Our philosophy, and mine in particular, is that our corporate account, which is just Synopsys on Twitter, it's about people. So our picture is a bunch of people from one of our user conferences saying, here are the people at Synopsys who are talking with you. Some companies choose to put a picture of their building, and spew press releases, or we're so cool, read our stuff, and they never listen to anybody. We don't do that at Synopsys. We say, here are the people, and every single tweet that we send out is associated with the person who sent it. We use a tool that was actually developed by Best Buy to say when Karen posts a tweet as Synopsys, it says, via Karen Bartleson. We put our personality into it, we put interesting information, and we never, ever spew press releases, because who wants to hear press releases on Twitter? Ugh.
Yeah, Intel, as you might imagine, a large corporate company with lots of lawyers and lots of lawyers watching us. We have a pretty exhaustive social media guideline. It is public, so if you do want to see it, go search on Intel's social media. I think it's guideline, Stuart, and it'll come up. We've been told that many other companies have sort of adopted it because, frankly, it's an easy one to. It's a great one because we've had lots of lawyers review it, and if you're a company who needs one, it's a pretty robust set of guidelines to use. Very similar principles to what Karen talked about, right? Be yourself, stay focused in your area of expertise. My personal guideline on it is also, you want to develop your personality out there, but you also want to be responsible and respective of people. So we tend to stay away from, let's call it, exotic language and other colorful variants, although we do try to have a lot of fun with it, which I think we successfully do.
And that leads into your picture, which is obviously not you, for anybody who
That was my
follows.
picture when I was 3 years old.
So we get a lot of fun because Jim has a picture of his son up there as his Twitter page picture. So gives just a little more personality than simply a logo from a company.
Than a picture of me, Mike. I have to say, look at this panel. Have you guys ever seen an embedded panel with such attractive panel members, like Pat and myself?
Thanks, Jim. That means a lot to me.
Let's tweet that.
Yes. Well, hey, anyways, I wanted, unless I think our time here is about done, but do you guys want to add anything?
I wanted to add one thing.
Oh,
Sorry.
go ahead. Go ahead, Jen.
I wanted to add one thing about kind of building on that model of centralized and decentralized. Lots of companies have, do it different ways, and I think this type of approach, all of our companies are following a really similar approach. But I think that's what makes this media so special, is that you can have personality. Think about it, press release doesn't have personality, right? It's corporate speak, it's telling you the news, it's telling you the specs of whatever new product. But on Twitter, we can be a little more fun, and we are who we represent, of course, but we are also people. And so you get a flavor. And I think that builds brand. It goes back to what Tonya was saying, helps build brand. If any of you guys were at the keynote this morning, hopefully you saw one of our irreverent engineers is the Twitter handle Engineering Mind. And he does these kind of just funny, off-the-cuff videos making fun of himself and engineers like him. And that's something we couldn't do any other way, right? We couldn't do it through NI.com, but through Twitter, we have a way to kind of poke fun at ourselves and add some fun. So it's been this really cool viral video campaign that we wouldn't, it wouldn't fit into corporate marketing without a media like this.
All right, well, thank you again. I'm Pat Hopper with Open Systems Media. I wanted to thank our group. It's good to finally meet all of you guys. And thanks for coming.